YouTube Zico and the Goat House is back after Sunday's action in Week 5 of the NFL season. I'm here with my biggest takeaways and winners and losers of the week. We'll talk about my 5 biggest winners, then we'll have takeaways for the rest of the winners. 5 biggest losers, takeaways for the rest. Like we do every single Monday, we have loads of content every single week. You see it listed in the bottom left and always adding more. So join us for that Week 6 content, which is right around the corner. Follow us on Twitter. A lot going on there. Always interacting with you guys. You're missing out if you're not following it. Links pinned in the comments for that. And our sponsors, GLD Shop, Liquid IV, code GOAT on both sides. Have a giveaway for the GLD Shop. Have their 49ers chain on right now. They have more NFL pennants, more jewelry in general, these chains that I'm wearing. Check it out. Links pinned in the comments. So starting with 5 biggest winners of Week 5. And honestly, there's not a long list of giant winners. I have more bad takeaways for teams than good, it feels like. I'm starting to learn more and more about teams these days, Week 5 around this range. But the 49ers are a massive winner, and they won by a massive amount against who's supposed to be one of the top teams in the NFC, in the Dallas Cowboys. They win 42-10 in this game. So, there's not really a lot of specific, in-depth takeaways for the 49ers. It's, the plain and simple, primetime game, big moment against another team that's supposed to be great in the NFC, and they just dominate them. They just obliterate them. They continue to prove their dominance. They continue to prove that they're the best team in football. Right now, it's not really a prediction. We're not making predictions in this video, but it looks good if you do want to predict. But just right now, just the clear best team, and they're continuing to prove that. Other teams slip up. It's normal to slip up. The 49ers are not slipping up. They're looking absolutely dominant. And it's just, I think we talk about it every week, but there's just endless amounts of ways for the 49ers to win. And, we could start at the top. We could start about they can win with the pass game. They can win with the run game. They can win with defense. They can win with, specifically about defense, taking the ball away, being tight in coverage. They were locking down CeeDee Lamb in this game. They can win with pass rush. That's obviously a big one. They can stop the run. You have to stop the run to win championship football still, even though it's a passing league. They stop the run first, force teams to pass. But then we get even more specific. They can win with just draining teams like we saw throughout. There was drives where it's let's just go score. Let's just go score. And then there's other drives let's just drain them out. Let's pound the football. We'll sneak in a pass here. Keep the clock rolling. Let's just out physical them. It's just beautiful sight to see, really. And just dominant on defense, just making Dak look terrible, making plays, creating turnovers. There's just so many different ways they can win. And usually you say there's multiple teams that can do that, but usually you say that about teams, and it's they can run, they can pass, and they can play pretty good defense. So they can win in 3 different ways. 49ers, it's just there's so many different specific ways, more than just that. So I don't have a long list of takeaways. I don't really think anybody does. It's just plain and simple. Just continue to go out there and dominate. I think Purdy's looking better. We talked about last week. Purdy and Ayuk, both players are looking a lot better, improving every day. They were already good when they were playing for the 49ers right off the bat, but just getting better. McCaffrey looks dominant. Kittle had a fantastic game. Defense was locked down. Just again, continuing to look like the best team in football. How about the Bears on Thursday Night Football? They're looking like the worst team in football until this game. They get their first win, and they win in pretty dominant fashion, 40-20. And, it almost felt like it was bigger than that, too, you could argue. I thought, maybe the biggest takeaway for people is DJ Moore. The insane performance of DJ Moore. And that is a big takeaway. That addition proving to be a win, that was kind of obvious. Anybody could predict that. But the trade in general around DJ Moore just looks like a big win for the Bears. Just because there are moments in this game where it's DJ Moore just making plays, really. And some of those sideline throws by Fields, overall they were in a spot where only DJ Moore can get it. I guess one of them when DJ Moore can get it, but how many receivers can make that play? If some receivers are out there, maybe they don't make the play, but maybe it gets picked off or something like that. So DJ Moore, definitely is and should be a big takeaway of this game. But I think my biggest positive for the Bears is actually the offensive line. I know the Commanders' defense is looking like one of the worst in football, but And the Bears are responsible for that. I think people say that because put the Commanders at the bottom with their defense because the Bears scored 40 on them and other teams did well on them as well. But anyways, the Commanders still have a pretty good defensive line. I mean, that's still a pretty good defensive line across the board. Maybe more so on the interior. But the Bears' offensive line just dominated them. They looked outstanding. And I'm kind of glad the Bears were in a primetime game for people to see the offensive line is better than kind of the chatter. I honestly think it was the fan. The fan base is kind of knocking their own offensive line like it was one of the worst. Some people call them the worst. It hasn't really. The reality is it's been, if you watch every single offensive line, it's actually been, I think, worst case in the middle. It's probably been a little bit better than average if you're talking about all 32 teams. In this game, it looked much better than that even. So they've actually had a pretty decent offensive line. So I'm glad the prime time kind of got to see, because the offensive line's been fine. It has not been. Everybody gives up pressure here and there. And they've been beat up too. And they've been fine. This game was another step up. And that kind of goes, we talked about they improved in the offseason. We talked about they improved their offensive line. They got young guys getting better. They add pieces to the offensive line. So I think it's been okay. It hasn't been anywhere near great, but it hasn't been awful, which some people have been trying to feed to people. That's wrong. But it stepped up big time. It was great in this game. So that's promising for the future of this offense. And I think they adjusted to benefit their strengths as well. And I think the main thing is Fields, with Justin Fields running kind of his play style of offense. But I think the offensive line as well, guys like Darnell Wright, who's been good. But I think the blocking schemes that they had in this game, the play styles, and we even saw some counter style plays. Wright's familiar with blocking and those style of runs and plays in general at Tennessee. That was more like what he did. So maybe it's not just Fields. I think it opens things up for the running backs, for the offensive line, the type of blocking scheme that they have to use on those types of plays. So I thought it kind of benefited everyone, but Fields is the big one. They kind of played more towards Fields, the strengths, geared towards more of the strengths than his weaknesses in his game. But that is a big takeaway that I have. People were kind of wondering what, and this game reminded me a lot of the Patriots game last year, where the Bears kind of tweaked some things on offense to kind of run plays towards Fields' strengths, and they kind of dominated, and the Patriots weren't really ready for it. And they still had some more offensive production after that, but teams started to game plan for it a little bit. We'll see what happens this time, but it was a very similar thing. They kind of tweaked everything to kind of play towards their strengths. The Commanders weren't ready for it, so the Bears were very explosive in this game. How will it be the rest of the year? I guess that's to be determined. But so people kind of wonder, why weren't they running this offense in the beginning of the year? People want to say because the coaching staff's stupid. That's not the case. That's not the case. They wanted to see, because that front office, that coaching staff, they really want to run a pro-style offense. Everybody does. Pro-style, it's what wins championships. This style of offense, does it. The Ravens keep coming up short, with the quarterback running and, a lot of those, counter looks, things like that. But, and they added more RPO, read option, do those things win NFL championships. No, most coaches in front offices want to run a pro-style offense. So that is what, in the beginning of the year, they ran that. They kind of want to see if, because they got 2 first-round picks coming up, they kind of want to see if Fields can handle that. And it didn't really go all that well, but now they go back to his strengths, and they're going to have more offensive production. But I think it's not really a downside, but I think that if you're more of a Fields guy than a Bears guy, I think the downside is he could play like that. He can continue to play well in this offense, and they still actually might look for more of that pro-style guy, because they did test it out early on. Unless they go on a tear and they make the playoffs, something like that. So I guess that is the downside. Not really a downside for the Bears, but a downside for Fields. He has to continue. Teams are going to game plan for a little bit more, so he has to continue to feed off this performance. But he stepped up in this game. It was a really good performance. I think the last 2 weeks, and people said he stepped up last week, and I guess production-wise he did, but he still couldn't close out the game last week. He still had turnovers and bad moments, so I wasn't anywhere near sold still. But the last 2 weeks, this Commanders game and last week, the positive improvement that I see from Fields, and he's starting to see open receivers, and even DJ Moore wasn't even really that open sometimes in this game, and he was still able to make the throws. So there's definitely big step ups for step ups for Fields in these games. And it's a positive for him going forward this year and for the Bears' production on offense that they're playing like more his style. Like, get the quarterback outside, get him in space, make him have a decision out there, have him have a decision out there, more read option, RPO looks. Again, some of these counter runs and style plays I like a lot for this offense, not just Fields. I think it opens things up for the running backs. It kind of throws off the defense. Like, what are they running here? Is it going to be some sort of read option? Like, what style runs it going to be? So it makes their offense a little more dangerous, but it's really not a takeaway for the future. It's still to be determined on the future. But this was a big win for the Chicago Bears. And DJ Moore addition, huge, just huge for them. Offensive line is better than people think. It was really good in this game, like really good against a good defensive line. It is much, much better than people have been giving it credit for, like far better. I'm glad people kind of got to see it. There's been a little BS out there that it's been really, really bad. Really not the case at all. Next, Jacksonville Jaguars. I thought there was 3. Like, I always do 5, and I did do 5, but I thought there was 3 like major winners, and this is the third one here. The Jags win 25-20 in London, their second home against the Bills. Maybe they had an advantage of being, staying in London 2 weeks, sure, but they're improving every week. It was starting to get a little questionable with them for a little bit, but what does the NFL prove every single year? What do I say every single year is the first few weeks, like 2 or 3, sometimes 4 weeks, really like tend to be misleading. You can't judge teams off them. You can like have takeaways for that specific time, but not really the future. And the Jags are kind of proving that. Like, they weren't really themselves like early in the year, and now they're improving and looking more and more like themselves every single week. Looking at last week, the dominant win, and this week playing the hottest team in the AFC. And really, they won by more than that. Like, if you watch the game, it felt like 25-20 felt like they were they absolutely dominant? I don't know, but maybe not far off there. So they definitely impressed more than that scoreline shows, and they are improving every week. Playmakers showing up, and we know they have playmakers. We know the Jaguars have playmakers coming into the year. Anybody that knows anything could tell you that you look at it on paper, they have playmakers. Have they fully been showing up during like kind of the questionable part of this early season for the Jaguars? Not really. Like, Etienne was struggling to get something consistent going. The receivers, like, they're good. They make plays, but they drop the ball a bit. Defensively, they're a little inconsistent. But no, in a game like this, in the last couple weeks, they've been showing up. Like, Christian Kirk had a pretty good game. Calvin Ridley had they had really great games. Etienne was a monster in this game. Defense back-to-back weeks making plays. Darius Williams, who's a fantastic corner. I mean, he played receiver in that situation against Diggs. So they're big name players that are supposed to be playmakers. They were playmakers these last 2 weeks, we'll say. So that's good. It's more, and it's more evident now that the first few weeks were kind of just one of those misleading, knocking off the rust. Like, the playmakers they're coming out now. They just had to knock off that rust. They're coming. So it's a great sign for the Jaguars in the future. And maybe some of these teams in the AFC that were supposed to be juggernauts aren't really looking like that good of juggernauts or that much like juggernauts, and the Jags are starting to get back to their game, and they're probably going to improve as the year goes on, not just for like a little stretch here. So that's a good sign for them in terms of contending possibly for the AFC. T-Law can make the elite play. I look at that ball late. It's one play. I mean, he made more than one play. So for all year, he's made it. Sometimes receivers drop the ball. And his ball placement in the edge of the end zone, in the back end of the end zone is very impressive. I've been saying that, but we're going to talk about one play. That play at the end of the game, which the game still went on after that, but it pretty much was the moment, like, third down, sideline throw downfield, dropped in the bucket to Calvin Ridley. That play pretty much did it. At that moment, it was like, okay, game's not for sure over, but it's probably over. That is a big boy throw. That in that moment, third down, you have a lot of balls. You got to have a lot of balls to call that play, make that play. No hesitation, step back. It's 3-step drop, let it go. And to make that level of a throw, there's quarterbacks that just can't do. There's a lot of quarterbacks that can't do that once during a game. Maybe all season. Maybe they haven't done it yet. And then there's quarterbacks that can do it here and there. It'll pop up here and there. But they can't do it when the pressure's on them. They cannot do it to close out games. They can't go win games. And which quarterbacks could be talented but then go win games and be a closer. That's what I'm looking for, to know if a quarterback is great or not. And there's not many. There's people that want to talk themselves into thinking that there's more quarterbacks than there is, but there really isn't. There really isn't many. And Trevor Lawrence is proving that he's one of those guys. Like, he can make those big boy plays. So I love that throw from him. And the run defense was fantastic in this game. They eliminated that from the Bills. Maybe the Bills eliminated that from themselves a little bit, but very impressed with the Jags, and they're continuing to get better, and that is a great sign for them as a potential contender here. So let's take those first sloppy few weeks. Let's throw them out the window, throw them out the door. Obviously, the losses still count in terms of the standings, the record, but I think the Jags are more deserving of being judged off these last couple games. But they got to go out and kind of prove that and show us that's more like the Jacksonville Jaguars. The next two biggest winners, I'll go with the Eagles here. I mean, I do think they could have done a better job putting them away, the Rams away. Like, I kept going with this game, like, it's not over yet. Like, how is this game still going? Like, I don't know if I'm sure somebody else was doing that. I just kept feeling like, what the hell is happening? Like, how is this game not over? Even though it was kind of over. Like, the Rams kept getting chances at the end, but they still needed more than just a touchdown. But I think the defense stepped up. The defense has been a little sketchy, and they're playing explosive, Rams offense. And was the defense great? 14 points is pretty good. The defensive line was great. They got pressure, but I did think the Rams moved the ball a little easier to score more than 14. So, yeah, it's not completely fixed. It's not completely perfect, but it stepped up. We definitely expected the Rams to score more than 14. I expected both teams to score more, but I did think the production, that's why it was weird. I thought the production was there for both teams to have more points. Like, it felt like this game should have been, predicting the game before the game, I felt like 27-24 was actually my prediction. I thought somewhere around that range. It doesn't have to be exactly. But based on how the game went, it felt like the score probably should have been around there, but it didn't, so maybe there's a little bit of lack of finishing drives on both offenses maybe, but the Eagles did enough to close this one out. I think if the Rams, that's what I like about the Eagles offense. Because I'm pretty confident, it's an assumption, but I'm pretty confident if the Rams did score on some of those chances they had late, because I said the Eagles are kind of kept them around, I think the Eagles would have went and scored. I think they're really good in those situations where they have to score. We talked about that last week, I think, as well. So, yeah, they kept the Rams around, but I really wasn't worried about that. But the defense did step up. They held them to 14 points. I think the pass defense could be a little bit better. The coverage, I should say, could be a little bit better. We know they're extremely, extremely, extremely talented on the D-line, and those guys are winning and making plays, so it starts there. Haason Reddick and Jalen Carter are stars. Reddick kind of showed that last year. He's about to be a little quiet, for him, but not in this game. He really stepped up, and Jalen Carter is a game wrecker, and he's that elite prospect. He's showing that he's that elite prospect that he is, and he's going to be an elite football player, really. So he's been having a really good season. He's been getting pressure. And there's some people that have pressure up here on what you value, and sacks all the way down here. It's a little closer for me than other people because. Mainly for edge rusher. For defensive line, I think pressure, it's a little bit different. Pressure is a little bit more higher. But him turning that into sacks now in this game, that's huge for me because sacks do matter. Which we knew Hurts does it all. But, he really did it all in this game, through the air, on the ground. Just a big-time player making big-time plays. And looking more and more kind of like that Hurts last year, I was going to say MVP Hurts, but he played like an MVP. There's multiple guys that play like an MVP, really. Kind of looking more a little bit more like that. Did have one interception that he would like back, but yeah. So overall, I thought the Rams would score more points. They scored 14, so it's a step up for the Eagles defense. So a big winner on the day. And then we'll talk about the Bengals, which they've had a rocky start, but they're, we thought the second half of the Rams game, they're getting back on track when they just were awful against the Titans last week. But this game looks like they're back on track. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But 34 points. They were without T. Higgins, and Burrow and Chase being able to do that without T. Higgins is huge. Just a monstrous game for both of them. So they kind of looked back. At least the connection's back. Let's see if it stays. Hear about Burrow saying he's feeling like he's progressing with the health, his health. So that's fantastic. Defense made plays. Just all around, they look a little bit more like the older, like the the really good Bengals, I guess the old Bengals, like last year, end of last year Bengals. They did play the Cardinals, but still, just all around looking a lot better. So they feel like they're a little step closer. And the biggest thing is like they've been struggling. I'm still confident. I think a lot of you out there got to be confident. Like they'll figure it out. Like maybe they don't get back to like the best team in the AFC or like top 2 even, or maybe they do. But I think we're confident that they'll be better in the middle of the year and at the end of the year than they are right now. And they were before this week. I think we're confident with that. And they're a step closer. They're not fully back. We don't know that yet. But they're a step closer. But I think the big thing is, again, I was kind of going into that. Like they've been sloppy. Like they've been slow to progress. Everything. We know what's going on. And they're only 1 game back. Like as bad as they've been in the tough division, they're only 1 game back. And we, again, like I was getting into, we know they're going to get better at the end of the year. Like, we don't know if the Ravens are going to get better than they are. We don't know if the Steelers are going to get better than they are. The Browns, probably out of the 3, are probably the one that you'd argue maybe should improve out of those 3. But the Bengals, I think it's a long shot if you think that they're going to stay the same. What they've been playing, like the sloppiness. I think if you think that, I think that's bold. I think they're going to, I'm not going to guarantee they get way better, like elites, but they are going to get better, and it's been rough, but they're only 1 game back. That's what makes them a huge winner this week. So that's fantastic for them. And then other takeaways for other winners. We'll talk about every team. We'll talk about the biggest losers and takeaways of the other losers. The Saints' offense stepped up. Was it like incredible? No, their defense did most of the work, but they made plays when they needed to. They didn't really need to be incredible. They kind of drained the clock, took care of the ball, looked much better in this game. So that's fantastic. And I know the Patriots are missing Judon, they're missing Christian Gonzalez, but it's still a decent defense. It's still a Bill Belichick defense, and they're able to make plays. The defense continues to be top tier. I mean, they create plays. I know they play the Patriots, but they create plays. I love the secondary. I've been hyping up that secondary. Looks really good. So this was not only a much-needed win, not only was it a dominant win, not only was it a much-needed win, but it was much-needed momentum, but mainly for the offense to kind of step up, get some confidence going here. And the Falcons, I thought, Ritter stepped up, throwing for 300 plus in the game-winning drive, and he didn't do anything like outstanding, like spectacular, like wow in this game, but he really stepped up. He needed to do that. So very efficient. So that was big. And the defense just continued. We kind of said this a few weeks ago, but the defense really looks, well, that's the thing. Earlier in the year, the first couple weeks, we're saying the defense looks improved from past years. And you could take a good educated guess that it is improved. But again, the first few weeks kind of lie. They're misleading. But now we're in week 5, and the defense looks just very much improved. It almost it's like you can say it's a kind of a fact at this point. The pass defense looks great. They stopped the Texans to field goals for the most part. They did give up a late touchdown that almost cost them, but didn't. So the defense is very, especially in the secondary coverage, like it's very much improved for the Falcons, and they're tough at home. They're undefeated at home actually, so they got to figure out a way. They got to figure out games away a little bit better there. The Lions, they play the Panthers, probably the worst team in football, but they're not slipping up. They continue to look dominant here. They continue to dominate, on the ground, through the air, defensively. Hutchinson's been playing out of his mind. Ali McNeil looks great. Montgomery looks. I mean, they continue to get the job done. They continue to bully teams. They're kind of too fast. Like I'll hit teams all at once. Like that's what I think of when I watch the Lions play. So they continue to be unique in different ways as well. So it was kind of expected this week. So we're not going to go like an elite performer, even though kind of technically it was. But very much impressed with the Lions. One, I think it kind of what we've been saying the last couple of weeks is they're like the clear-cut, especially after the Packers game last week and how the other teams are playing. They're clear-cut favorites in the NFC North more and more each week. But then, again, we will sit here and say, it was just the Panthers. But then again, they dominated them. And then you look at last week, the Vikings played the Panthers, who was known as the Lions' threat in the NFC North. And they beat the Panthers, but it was like, was I impressed? Not really. And the Lions go out there and they obliterate them. They don't even have their best receiver, so it's just kind of more and more like towards like they're by far the most dominant team in the NFC North right now. The Dolphins, they create mismatch, nightmares at the speed. We knew this. It's a funny take to sit here and say like they got elite speed, but because we knew that, but it's like showing more and more like. and it's creating mismatches. Like, how do we deal with this guy? How do we guard that guy? Who do we put on that guy? We got to worry about this play, that play, this, that, and this, We got to keep guys back because we don't want to give up that speed, that home run, speedy play. The Giants are saying we run man coverage, and we got the guys to run man coverage. We don't really have the guys to run zone, but we can't run man against the Dolphins. What the hell do we do? I guess we'll still run man. The Dolphins make them pay. So it's like, it's still problems. The turnovers weren't great. You can look at it 2 ways. I mean, the turnovers are bad. Tua had 2 really bad interceptions. Achane had a fumble. Not really concerned about that, but they had some bad turnovers. You can't turn the ball over 3 times. Like, if you do that against like the Bills or the other teams, like, even if you're better, let's see who, the Chargers, who they played in week 1, who's supposed to be like a pretty good AFC team. I'm just giving you an example. Like, if you turn the ball over like you did in this game against a team like that, you might not beat them next time. Maybe you still do, but that's my point. So that's not good. But the positive is, I mean, they turned the ball over 3 times, and you still just dominated. Like, you still completely dominated. So it shows kind of what they're capable of. And the Jets, I mean, the fantastic adjustments. I kind of knew it. I was watching the first half, and I'm like, they're letting Russell Wilson run a bit. McLaughlin, they're letting escape a little. The first touchdown was a little lucky. And it kind of looked like they started very poorly against the Chiefs last week, and the defense was locked down against one of the best offenses in football. So I'm like, they're going to kind of figure this out, right? And then they really made adjustments to take away things from the Broncos and kind of leave them with nothing. It did get a little scary at the end, but they made a play on defense again. And I thought offensively, they really realized, which didn't take a rocket scientist, but it kind of realized, like, all right, we can probably run the ball almost every play, and that will do wonders, and it could open up. If we need to pass, it'll open it up, and they did exactly that. So in the run game, that's what it says behind me. The run game was fantastic. Breece Hall is great. He's fantastic. I know the Broncos are the worst in football, but it's good to see them kind of get him going more. So that was really, they lost last week, but back-to-back pretty positive weeks for the Jets, especially this week here. And then the rest of the big winners, the Colts are tough because, like, they have a big positive here. Like, how dominant that run game was with Zach Moss, really, against the Titans run D. I mean, we're talking about the very best run defense the last 2 seasons, like elite, some of the best run defense I've ever seen in my life. And this year, statistically, are they as good? Maybe not quite, but they're still that same run defense that, like, they just take the run away from teams and make them one-dimensional. And the Colts were just able to dominate against it. Like, dominate against a dominant run defense. That's pretty damn impressive. And just being able to find, they play tough, being able to find ways to win. Richardson gets knocked out. Minshew's a better passer right now, but still, just, your quarterback's out. You got to throw the other one in, just finding ways to win. So overall, it's an impressive day, but at the same time, the Anthony Richardson thing is kind of what the main takeaway is. Like, so that's almost a negative. It's like your first round pick, your top pick, missed a game already. So he's played in 4 games, and in 2 of those games he didn't even finish the half, and he has 3 injuries already. 3 injuries knocking him out of games already. It's not good. It's not good, and we can sit here and be optimistic. Like, I want to be optimistic. My job is to be straightforward with everybody, but people are gonna be optimistic, like, oh, he'll be fine, like, it's tough. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. I can't predict injuries, but a guy that starts his career in his play style too, but the guy who starts his career with 3 injuries in 4 games, doesn't even finish those 4 games, misses a game, like, you tell me where chances are with his long-term career. So I'll say I don't think they'll be in position, but if they're in position to get one of, like, the sure thing top quarterbacks in the draft, I think you got to view it as a need. And I think Richardson's got great potential. So it's not a take on his potential, but he does need, he's still got a long way to go with his accuracy and his passing. And he shows glimpses to me that and I write people off easily, quarterbacks, and I've been right, not to pat myself. My point isn't to pat myself in the back. The point is, like, it's fairly easy to tell with quarterbacks right away these days. But he's a guy where, yes, he struggles. Look, mainly got to go off his college tape because we don't have enough to see here. But he struggles with his base, with his footwork, and being an accurate passer consistently. But most of those guys I would write off because that's an important thing. But I see the glimpses. I see upside. But he needs the run game in his game to kind of continue to develop and open those things up, because that's the special thing about him, you know. But for him to have these injuries, it's tough. Like this many injuries, this short amount of time, like if you're predicting that he's going to be fine, like throughout his whole future, like he's going to finish season after season, I'm happy that you're optimistic, but I hate to say that, but it's not looking great. And I'm not going to say he's constantly going to be injured. Like this might be like a little too much. Like this might be fluky right now, where like it's not, every year is not going to be injury every week. You know, not saying that. It's just not the greatest sign. So there is a huge negative on the Colts' first pick and the quarterback. But even though that was a big win for them against a division rival, and they were dominant on the run there, and they found a way to win. Steelers, I mean, they're very clutch. The pass rush is clutch. They make plays when they need to. It feels like in all their wins, like they just kind of get by that way. And George Pickens was fantastic. I mean, he could be a top 10 receiver. You just got to get him the ball. You know, so those are the positives, but it's still, they got outplayed for most of this game. They were fortunate the Ravens made mistakes, dropped the ball a lot. You know, drop touchdowns. So, I mean, there's still a lot. Like, the Steelers need more offense still. But they did clutch up, you know, in big moments. The Pickens play was huge. Pass rush is still big. They really do rely on making those crazy plays, though. We saw it in the Browns game, the Raiders game, and it's in this game. So are they as good as their record? And their record's not even that great. And the Chiefs continue to be clutch. They're clutching big. Same thing as last week. They didn't look that great last week. They're clutching the big moments. Mahomes is clutching the big. The play of the game in this one was a 3rd and 18 where Mahomes just threw it off his back foot and they completed it. Just clutch plays like that, being able to put games away. But at the same time, they don't really feel, and it's kind of like a positive. Like they don't really feel why this is a positive is, well, first I'll say they don't feel like the Chiefs. You know, they're not playing their best ball right now. So that's why I'm not like, they're not high up on the winners categories of the winners, because like they're not really playing great football right now, but they're still winning. That's where it's a pause. Like they're still winning. So they're at some point they're going to play like the Chiefs, more like the Chiefs. They still are playing like the Chiefs, but they're going to play more like the Chiefs, and they're going to be not only winning games, but they're going to look even better. They're going to be more of that contender, you know. So wasn't overly impressed, but they got the job done. You know, in Minnesota, tough place to play, and they were very clutch. Obviously, they know when they need to make when they need to make a play, especially Mahomes, they make the play. You know, so that's where they're at there. So it's kind of similar to last week, even though it was a different matchup. And out of the biggest losers, the Ravens are at the top for me. I do tend to put these in order. Just very sloppy. They're proving to be a very overrated team, and the sensitive crowd probably going to be mad at me for that. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at your team. It's not a prediction for the future like they're gonna be overrated. No, this is a fact right now. You know, so nobody can argue with me. They're overrated right now. They're probably the most overrated team in football right now. And they're going to, for my opinion to change, which it could. Again, it's not a prediction. For the opinion to change, they got to go and change it. But people talk about them being the Super Bowl contender and this big-time team. And I'm overrated. Some people are stupid. They think overrated means bad. No, they're a good team still. They're good. There's a lot to like on their team. Both sides of the ball. They're going to win a lot of games this year. Even if they're beat up, they're going to win a lot of games this year. But people want to talk about them being a Super Bowl team, and they just haven't been that. And they're always beat up. That plays a part. That's who they are. So no excuses. But they continue to have games like this. They have them every year. It's like, how do you not put the Steelers away? How do you not win this game? Like, how do you look that sloppy? They just do not look like one of the best teams in the AFC like this. And it shows up. It shows up in the Colts game. I mean, last week they got the chance to play a rookie quarterback getting thrown in there. Like, overall, have they been that impressive? Like, there's been moments, or like Lamar was impressive last week going against, throwing the ball against the Browns defense. But there's moments, but it's just, they got Greg Roman out of there. I still think there's potential with the Todd Monken offense. Like, is it going to stay the same? No, I'm not saying it's going to stay the same. But it just, in general, it just feels like the same team. Like, anybody can get injured at any time. They might have a closing problem. They're sloppy. They rely on Lamar Jackson making insane plays, or they rely on the defense holding, and they basically did. I mean, the defense held them except for that one, the Pickens play, and they still lost. Like, that's the defense like still did their part, but they still lost. That makes it more of a negative. The receivers are, you go and spend big money on 1-year deal on Odell. He's hurt. Zay Flowers, I mean, like, he's only a rookie and he's had good moments so far, but he might be overrated too because people like he's so shifty, he's fast, he makes big plays, he's a guy you can get the ball to anywhere on the field, so he's good. Like, it's like there's flashy moments, but like he does rely on getting that screen pass or that short like underneath route or the end around, whatever it is. And rely after the catchability, but he will have drops. He a couple fell down in this game. Like he has like certain ways for him to get going, and the drops did show up at Boston College a lot too. But I mean he's going to be a good player. He's going to be a good player, but man, I mean, and Bateman, I'm pretty much throwing in the towel on Bateman because what's gone on in his career, but dropping that touchdown and jumping for that ball you don't need to jump for, that's like if I'm coaching high schoolers and they do that, I'm fucking getting on them. Like that, I don't want to see a wide receiver jumping for a ball you don't need to jump for. That's like first it's catch the ball, which you didn't do. Second, it's like little things like that, or trying to catch the ball with your body, or having your hands down when they should be up. Like that goes along with it. Like it's high school mistake, like early high school mistake. So pretty much throwing the towel in with him. Like even Andrews couldn't really get much going in this game, and you start to like think about it with the Ravens. You start to like look at this team. It's like, yeah, the receivers are still a question. Like their best receiver is a rookie, and he's even inconsistent. They have a great tight end. They have pieces on the offensive line, but do they stay healthy? They have, and then defensively, like their defense is fine. But it's like pretty much Lamar carrying this offense still, and even he has mistakes that he should not make. Like he's got to close out the game. He's got to be better in the crucial moments. Like, so he's not the number one blame at all, but he's part of it. Like he's part of it there. So I'm extremely disappointed with the Ravens. They're just not as good of a team as people are saying. It's just plain and simple. It's a fact right now. Like people are going to try to argue with it. You can't. It's a fact right now. It's not a take on the future. I'm not saying they'll be overrated in week 14, whatever. Not saying that. Right now, that's where they're at. Go and change it, The Commanders, like, brutally awful. Does that even make any sense? Brutally awful? Yeah, brutally awful defense and offense. The defense shouldn't be. But the defense should be better, like a lot better than it is. But maybe I've been giving them too much credit on paper as well, because I'm starting to sit here and think, like, is Chase Young really good at football? Like, no, I guess he's not. Like, he could be good. Like, he's a good run defender for a defensive lineman. Montez Sweat, really, like, he's good moments, but he never really hit his upside. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne are very good. They're very good. Linebackers been awful. They're still awful. I don't know why I thought Cody Barton was the guy. Like, I even said that, and people were trying to argue with me, like, oh, that's a good pickup. Like, shut up. Like, no. Not everything your team does is good. That was another thing, too. Commanders fans last week, they lost. The last couple weeks, they lost, and people they're complaining in the comments that I need to have more positive takes on the Commanders. People were complaining that I had them 18 in the power rankings. I needed to move them up after a loss. It's ridiculous. Go out and win, and you have a game like this against the Bears. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, it's getting kind of annoying, Just awful defense. It should not be that bad. Everything. There's nothing good about it besides the interior defensive line. So it still shouldn't be this bad, but it's definitely been overrated. And people blame Rivera and Del Rio. They deserve some blame, but either they made adjustments because the Bears adjusted their offense going in this game. There was no game plan for it because there's no tape on it this year. And either they adjusted to put them in position to win. It's just players taking bad angles, not filling gaps correctly, missing tackles, blowing coverages, jumping on routes that you shouldn't be jumping, just getting beat in coverage. The coaches aren't out there making these mistakes. Sure, they deserve a little bit of blame, but everyone just wants to blame everything but the players, and it's getting old. Like, the players are bad. The players are playing bad. The offensive line's terrible. Another thing, too, I went in the year predicting them to be the 32nd offensive line. They're actually not. The Giants are 32nd, but the Commanders are 31. So people were trying to tell me, like, no, they're not that bad. Like, they are that bad. Just listen, all right? And Howell has upside still. He can make explosive plays, but he's still prone to turnovers. I think Bieniemy's going to take over at this year. I had that prediction when they hired him. And they'll probably, unless they turn the season around, they'll probably move on from Rivera. I bet you they promote Bieniemy. Bieniemy is, I know the style guy he has. I've talked to people who've been around him, and I kind of know why people have been hesitant to hire him, and it has nothing to do with his success. Like he can run an offense, like he can, he's smart. It's just kind of more of his character a little bit. We won't get into that fully, but it kind of goes into it. Like, he's a tough dude, like, no nonsense. I want the best of the best, and he's been around the best with Mahomes. So if I'm predicting him to be in charge next year, he's going to go out and get better at quarterback if he has the opportunity. Again, Howell is upside, but he makes too many mistakes. He's questionable with his pocket movement and how long he holds on to the ball. So what I realized in this game is that they need to get better everywhere, pretty much. So against the Bears, who were the 32nd team in football, just to get obliterated home on Thursday night, it's a bad outing. It's a bad outing. Patriots are just all across the board bad. Just all across the board. And I said it weeks ago, like, I knew this team wouldn't have a great record because the schedule's bad, but I thought they'd be better than their record. And I said that going into the year. And a couple weeks ago, I'm like, no, they are their record. They're bad. They're really bad. And people were like, no, they're really bad. And there's holes all across this team, more than we thought. Like, they got a hole at quarterback. They got a hole across the offensive line, maybe minus one or two players. They got holes at receiver. And people want to blame the offensive line and the receivers for Mac Jones throwing the ball to the other team and panicking. No, it's his fault too. They need a quarterback. They need receivers. They need offensive line. They got no running backs, apparently. They can't run the ball. Defensively, I mean, they'll be fine defensively. They could use some pieces there, but to be better, obviously. But they're worse than we thought, even though the record isn't worse than we thought. They're actually worse, and there's more holes than we thought. They're the same team as the Saints, but you go out there and get obliterated by the Saints at home. It's bad. Cowboys offense and defense struggled in this one, obviously. I mean, both were bad. You're supposed to be a top-tier NFC team, and you just get destroyed. They rely on making plays on defense, which they still could do throughout the year, but the defense was bad. They let the 49ers control the clock, do anything they wanted to. Dak was bad. I was starting to think this year could be a little different. Like, Dak's usually good in the regular season, and I remember the 49ers game 2 years ago. In that, like, he didn't make a ton of mistakes, but he just didn't do enough. Like, I needed him to do more in a big moment, and he couldn't do it. And then last year, he was making more mistakes. And I thought it could be a little bit different this year because I felt like the team could be better. And we'll see. There's a lot of time, but the mistakes are still there. And, maybe he just still can't play in those big games. So that's kind of what it looks like in a game like this. No one to blame but himself on the offensive struggles there. But I did not expect the defense to be that bad. So what this game tells us, they can't hang with the big boys, and they're supposed to be a big boy, so that's a tough one. Well, the Niners are the biggest boy of them all. The Panthers are proving it the worst team in the NFL. I think that's pretty evident right now. Will they be at the end of the year? That's not really they probably could be, but that's not my point. They are the worst team right now. And Bryce Young, I'm a little bit concerned with Bryce Young because I know it's early on in his career, and he can get better. Like, obviously, I'm not really going to sit here and say his talent will not improve, like he will have no talent in the future. Not really what I'm saying, but there are concerns. And I see people getting frustrated, like the sensitive bunch getting frustrated with me on Twitter that I'm pointing out. That's what my job is. I'm going to point out the mistakes and things that I'm surprised about. So you're going to have to deal with it because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he just threw it lob up to the other team and it's okay, Bryce. Like, you're going to be good one day. Like, he's making circles in the pocket. What am I supposed to say? Like, and they take him out in short yardage, and people act like I'm making a big deal about that. I am not. Like, you draft a guy first overall over C.J. Stroud, who I said you should take at the time, and it's a fact now they should have taken him. Forget C.J. Stroud. You're taking a guy first overall, and you have to take him out in crucial situations. It's not like you're putting in this crazy, it's not like you're putting like a Taysom Hill style player. You're putting in a long time veteran, Andy Dalton, in that situation. For you to take a guy out, show some doubt, and for you to take a guy, like value a guy first overall like that, and you don't trust him in every situation, like the face of the franchise, the biggest piece of the offense, the quarterback, and you don't have him in that. Like, to me, it means a lot. Like, it says a lot, and people think I can overreact to that. I'm not. But the main thing with Bryce Young is, with these takes the last couple, I've been getting on him because he deserves to be getting on, getting ripped a little bit, making mistakes. But I never was like, okay, he's making these mistakes now, so he's going to make them the rest of his career. He's not going to. Never said that. And I'm still not going to say he's not going to be. I'm not going to say he's not going to be good long term. I'm just telling you what he's doing right now. But there are things he's doing right now that it has me a little concerned about long term, because things that he just didn't do in college, like things that don't really get fixed once you see him in the NFL, like just mistakes he's making. And you can blame the receivers and the offense line all you want. More out of Bryce Young, offense line and receivers, they all got to be better. But who's number one not doing their job the best? Who's number one not being the least effective and playing the poorest? It's actually the quarterback. It's a fact. It's the quarterback. Whether you want to, people want to make excuses and try to talk themselves into being okay. But right now it's not okay. Sometimes he's escaping pressure where he doesn't need to. Sometimes he's taking off too early. It's the same thing. Sometimes he stands there when he has time, like doesn't have a long, like a super long time. But sometimes he just stands there and then he eventually gets sacked and he eventually gets pressure. It's not on the offensive line there. And then these circles that he's making, he's going backwards. He's going the wrong way. It's like, that's like, I don't know if you can coach that, but why isn't all of a sudden, I guess he did it at Bama a little bit, but it's something like in those moments, it clicks to him because those moments you don't think. You shouldn't think. You just do. And he's doing the wrong thing in those moments. And now he's throwing balls up for grabs. And the slip screen that Hutchinson ended up intercepting, was it just an incredible play by the defense and maybe a little bit lucky? Yeah. So the ball placement wasn't bad, but the decision was. It was panic, I'm going to throw without knowing the situation. So it's a negative. So there's things that it may in the back of my mind, and I know even the people making excuses for him, and even the people saying out loud it's going to be fine. It's in the back of their mind too. All right, don't let them fool you. But we're not saying facts here in terms of how his talent will be in the future. But in the back of our minds, there are a little bit of concerns back there. About things can he fix. Like basically what people are asking for him is to have a perfect offense line and the best receivers possible. It's a little much. Like nobody really has that, So I'm a little concerned, and you should be too. But right now it's bad. I'm making statements on right now. We're not going to say like a full statement on what he'll be in the future. That he'll decide that, not me. Other negatives, the Broncos. I thought it was awful coaching. That was supposed to be the big thing. They traded for a big time coach. A coach that, used to win big games a long time ago. Still think he's a good coach, but this year it hasn't been good. I think it started with the onside kick to start the year. But in this game, I thought it was pretty bad coaching and play. But it also says a lot. Peyton isn't trusting Russell Wilson a lot, I guess at the same time with the screen passes and some of these play styles. It was early in the game. There was a third down, we'll screen pass it. We'll kick the field goal, basically. I don't even if you don't trust your quarterback, you got to try, So are they tanking? That's kind of what it looks like. But then they just got outcoached this game. The adjustments the Jets made that the Broncos did not. So I thought it was bad, but the play was bad as well. They don't trust Russell Wilson for a reason. He made the mistake at the end. Like he can make some dink and dunk plays. He can run. He'll have a bomb here and there. But still struggling, obviously. There really isn't good play from anybody. I'm trying to think, McLaughlin's playing better than what he's supposed to be, but there really isn't good play from anybody in a game like this. Outplayed, outcoached. The Jets outplayed them by more than what the score show as well. I know the Broncos were winning at halftime, but you can kind of feel it. The Jets left a field goal out there at the end, too, of the first half. It's just been bad. It's been... are they worse than last year? I guess you have to ask yourself. They probably aren't in terms of how they play. But the end result, they have one win right now as a comeback against the Bears. They're almost winless. But they're supposed to be so much better. They put a lot of stock into all this. Russell Wilson, Sean Payton, they kind of forced a lot of things, and it's just not good. It's a terrible situation. They're in a bad cap space situation next year as well. Bills, it was a sloppy game. They kind of took the run away from themselves, and the run game's been good, but it needed to be better in this game, so that kind of my takeaway there. Just not the best game, but I'll chalk it up to, it'll be, Jags they had to fly to London. They flew there too late, too, I realized, and the Jags were already there. We'll say, we'll kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's not too much doubt. Maybe that's just a lot of it, what it was. But a big negative, they just have more brutal injuries. They had Tre'Davious White go down, and I really didn't think that was going to be a major factor, and it kind of showed in this game, but that it kind of was. But I really don't think that's a huge issue. They got depth. They're well coached. And I was still confident with them being like the team of the AFC. But now Matt Milano goes down, and they got more. Daquan Jones went down. He's been playing out of his mind too. But Matt Milano's a big one. It's Ron Johnson. I'm going down at the end of this game. I didn't get an update on his injury, but I think it ended up being not as serious as it looked. But it's not great. It's not like they might need Matt Milano for playoffs or winning a Super Bowl. So brutal injuries that actually just like that might take them from here to here. You know, they're not going down here, but you get the point. Giants are proving to have the worst offensive line in football. I mean, they don't have Andrew Thomas out there, but it's really, 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 really bad. It's maybe the worst I've ever seen, but it's not me making excuses for Daniel Jones. He's still very bad as well. The receivers, they're all bad, and that's not good. They're bad across the board. They're getting predictable. Last year was all fresh. It was all new, and it kind of threw teams off. They're just pretty predictable, but I do think, on the offensive side, I do think Daboll is a little limited because Jones isn't playing well, but mainly because the offensive line, the receivers that he has. I'm starting, so that's kind of he has a legitimate excuse. Defensively, they're just going to continue to run man coverage when everyone knows they're running man coverage. They're going to run man against the players in the team that they should be the last team you run man coverage against. Go out there. It's the NFL. Get guys that can run zone coverage. Like, you got to be an idiot to not be able to run zone coverage. I think your guys now should be able to do it, but they're just solely getting guys that just kind of fit only man coverage. I knocked the front office a little bit. The Daniel Jones contract, then trying to patch the receiver problem with just other receivers they already have, basically. Like, did they actually get better at receiver? Their solution was go get a declining durability concern tight end, like, who has talent still, but ignoring the offensive line, like, just because it played a little better than expected last year doesn't mean it's good. Like, teams are going to start to figure things out. Relying on development, only getting specific type of players, and I know that coaching probably has part to do with that, but the front office, like, you thought, maybe that was a good hire with Joe Schoen, but now you start to question a little bit. So I'm not worried about Daboll, but the team doesn't look too prepared, and they're not disciplined too well either. So I guess you do question them there. They had a touchdown on defense. They created 3 turnovers, and they still got their ass beat. That's not good. It's not good. Titans had an odd outing just because the Colts ran all over them. I just don't expect that from the Titans with their run defense. Like, that's actually why not why they lost. They got to finish drives on offense, but it was odd. It just was not. That was like the last thing I was expecting on the week. Zach Moss go crazy against the Titans run defense. And they just can't play away. They're gonna look an above average team at home. They're gonna look like a below average team away. It's starting to kind of prove itself right now. DeAndre Hopkins had a monster game, and you can throw on the Colts, so they were doing that. But why weren't they getting points? Why weren't they getting touchdowns? Couldn't really get Derrick Henry going. Like, Tyjae Spears looks good. It's like a weird game for the Titans. I thought the Vikings just still make costly mistakes. They start the game. How they have 7 turnovers in just the first quarter, all the first quarters this year. That's 5 games, and they have 7 turnovers in just the first quarter. Like, it's insane. Like, no one's ever done that. First play of the game, it's a big game, they fumble. They're just making mistakes. They continue to make mistakes, but throughout the game, like, taking too much time to snap the ball. I think, Kirk's a good quarterback. Too many checkdowns, though, in my opinion. It's just making mistakes like that. Pass interference, which I guess the Harrison Smith one was questionable. There was contact on both sides, but Harrison Smith's a great player, so I'm not going to knock him. But just little mistakes like that, having to burn timeouts, and I see a lot. I think it's their fans. I see a lot of blame with the coaching staff, and I'm going to firmly disagree with that. If you know football and you're watching, if you understand the plays and you're able, not everyone's able to watch the whole play, but the designs of these plays that Kevin O'Connell has are pretty damn genius. Like, they are fantastic. I don't there's probably better play callers, but the designs of these, I don't know if there's better. Like, there's guys that are up there with him, and maybe, they're pretty incredible. And it's a lot of it is why they're successful on 4th downs, because they run that best design, because you can't run those crazy designs every play. You want to save some stuff. You don't want teams to be able to game plan for you. But when they pull it out, it's special, as long as the players execute. Um, and they had to burn timeouts. And yeah, maybe there was one where I don't really agree with them calling a timeout, but a lot of it, and defensively, Brian Flores doesn't have a lot to work with. I think he's doing the best he can. I think they have the best blitz in football because of Brian Flores. So these coaches know how to coach. They know how to coach. And a lot of them, I think, plain simple, they have to call timeouts and burn timeouts because what's going on in the field. There's some times where, I don't want to knock Kirk Cousins too much because he's a good quarterback and, everything, but he's definitely made some mistakes this year. This game, there's maybe some of the timeouts having to burn on him, but then there's plays where I think he checks down a little too much right now. Because there's some plays where it's like, that was wasn't wide open. It was a little open. The play design was there if you just waited a little bit longer. And the excuse before was, he didn't have much time. But the offensive line actually is stepping up. The offensive line's been, the first 2 weeks were a disaster. It's actually stepping up because they've been playing pretty decent the last couple of weeks. We know they have a really good tackle duo, and I credit maybe the coaching to getting the offensive line to step up a little bit. But I don't blame the coaching at all. In this, they're not out there fumbling the ball. They're not out there throwing interceptions. I know he didn't have an interception this game. They're not out there just making these mistakes, not getting the ball off in time. I don't. And people, but I think people want to blame it because they have so much. They have too much talent to be 1-4. They have too much talent to be making these mistakes, and I agree with that. But that doesn't mean it's the coach's fault. It means they have talented players that are also making mistakes. You could have both. That's literally what's happening here. So I don't agree where the blame's going there at all. They're just making mistakes. It's kind of who they are this year. It's unfortunate. They could have a lot more. They were in this game, but they don't have those extra wins. And then next. The last three, I want the Rams to run the ball more. Kyren Williams looks good. They were I think they stuck to the original game plan a little bit too much because the Eagles stopped the run. But the Eagles' game plan for the pass, they're going to get pressure on the Rams' offense line and Stafford, against anybody almost. They were in this game. They were acting like they were almost out of the game. We got to throw. At the end of the game, I understand. Run the ball more is what I ask. Go away from the game plan. McVay, I'm not going to doubt him too much. He's one of the better offensive minds in football. And Stafford, an offensive line, Stafford threw some good balls. He's a good quarterback, obviously. And there's times where the offensive line allowed too early of pressure, and that's on them. That's on the offensive line playing bad, which we almost expected against the Eagles defense. But there are times where it's like he doesn't have a lot of time, but he has enough. Get the ball out. Throw the ball, or stepping into pressure. So the Stafford didn't play bad, but there were bad moments. I thought, and I think they could have done a little bit more. They only scored 14 too. They moved the ball well enough. They can move the ball well enough as well to score more than that. Cardinals, say Dobbs looked like Dobbs, and that kind of made the Cardinals look like the Cardinal, like who we thought they were going to be. Dobbs making mistakes. He should have taken off a bit more. And they've been designing more runs from him. He didn't have a single scramble in this game. And they didn't do any of those bootlegs where they get him outside. They maybe did a couple, but he didn't take off. They usually design a little bit more, and he usually scrambles more, and that limits the mistakes, and that keeps drives alive. I was shocked they didn't do more of that because the Bengals actually gave up some yards to quarterbacks as well this year. So, they get a goal line stand, and Dobbs throws that pick right after, and that's brutal. And they don't have the talent on defense. It showed last week, so they're starting to they're tougher than anybody expected still, but they're starting to come back down to earth a little bit. That's what it is. The Texans put up a good fight. They could have won this game. There were still some bright moments. Stroud still playing, fairly well, throwing the ball. Pierce doing a little bit of damage. The defense, for the most part, handled things. So there are some pauses. They got to execute better in the red zone. Is there really anything specific? Why didn't they execute? I don't really have a problem with the play calling. Maybe if they just had, better weapons. I know Tank Dell got taken out of this game. Concussion, I believe it was. Maybe that could have helped them execute a little bit more. It's just, there really isn't anything specific they got to fix. It's just just got to go execute. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But they got to go out and execute there. But the pass defense, they let Ritter look better than he is. If you look, Ritter look like, it's surprising the Texans did that. He didn't torch them all game, obviously. But that last drive, that didn't really feel like a DeMeco Ryans defense, that last drive. Too much cushion were they like in prevent? It's hard for me to imagine that D'Amico Ryans had those guys playing that far off. It's really hard for me to imagine. I think the players, I don't really know for sure. Yeah, I can't say for sure. Like, we don't know. We don't have the headset on. It just didn't really feel like a D'Amico Ryans defense that they would do that. Like, that's not what his defense does. So, was it the players kind of backing up a little too much? It was just too much time for that, and all they had to get was a field goal with one of the best kickers in football. So, just letting Ritter throw for that much is unfortunate. But honestly, if they execute in the red zone, if they get touchdowns instead of field goals, they finally got a touchdown late in the game. But if they get touchdowns instead of field goals, not only do they win this game, they win it pretty comfortably. So that was it mainly. But I don't really have major takeaway, like bad takeaways of the Texans. It's like they put up a fight in this game. I still think they're ahead of schedule where they're at. They were close. They were close in this one. But that's going to wrap it up for my takeaways for all teams, except for the Monday night teams and the bye teams. But yeah, as soon as the Monday night game ends, we start working on our Week 6 content, 'cause that's what everyone's looking for. So that's why we do it that way. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. We're always talking. If you guys want to reach me, we're always talking about football on our Twitter. Links pinned in the comments for that and other important things, giveaway, leagues, just other things going on, recent videos. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Join us for that content. Week 6 stuff right around the corner. We're always adding new content, trade deadline stuff, NFL draft stuff, playoff predictions, things like that. So join us. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.